All right, Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach. Really do
Always.
appreciate, but more important, I'm donning the hat. I'm donning the shirt that you sent me with
Yeah.
much gratitude and appreciation.
Well, no,
Thank you.
we appreciate it, and happy to you have some ties to Northeast Ohio, so happy to have you in some black and gold instead of purple and gray or whatever it is or black. So no, we appreciate it.
We're multicolored.
Yeah.
This is another one that's just I just get grief. I'm gonna get grief on when people see that. They're gonna give me grief. I got North Central cap the other day from the men's soccer program, and that's really not a place I want to be wearing that hat. But yeah, that's a tough one.
I think it's cool the collection you've garnered. And, so behind you, you'd mentioned something about kind of your shrine and the scarves and all sorts of different stuff. So it's pretty cool. The impact
I got the scarf. I got the scarves going. My YouTube studio is taking shape.
Yeah.
Not really. And then I got the hats. I got hats. I counted. It's probably now 101. 101
That's
hats.
incredible. Yeah. That's a good
Which is
rotation.
troublesome.
So, okay, you walk in to where you keep your hats, don't know where that is. Like, how do you decide what you're wearing on the day if you're not doing an interview?
It turns. I wear a hat every day, just about, because
Yeah.
I roll out of bed and I come to my office. So that's a good question. It takes a lot of thought, but sometimes it's just comes down to what haven't I worn in a while. So,
All right.
or if I
Cool.
do have an interview, I try to have some stupid story that connects the hat.
Sure.
Or something
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So,
Cool.
these are the things that one must do as a YouTube influencer. But I do it for my fans and for all of you who make me great.
Yeah.
um,
Well, you're helping
yeah.
us out. So no, again, as we've talked, we appreciate it as coaches that
It's awesome.
somebody has
It's awesome.
interest in D3 soccer and is passionate about it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I have to say, I've said this before, like, and you're another prime example. I mean, the caliber of folks who are coaching at Division III just completely astounds me every time I talk to somebody new. Like, it just amazing. You forget, right? Like, probably because you don't get the visibility. But,
Sure, and that's okay.
Just the quality of
they're
coaches.
great people, great leaders that are trying to do the right
Yep.
things, and just in a different
Yeah.
different realm. And it's a neat
Yeah.
community to be a part of, and
Yeah.
thankful for that. And it's pretty cool to say the least.
Yeah. All right, let's get rolling here.
Cool.
Without prompting,
Okay.
give me your sense of how your season went.
To be quite frank, and I think our players would say the same thing. It was pretty unique and a variety of reasons, and I'll get into maybe why it ended the way it did. But kind of a slow start. We're super competitive. Had John Carroll was a 1-0 game, and those are the benchmark games. Like where are we competing in that? And I think Dan's done a phenomenal job, and we're right there. And that was one we just kind of came out on the short end. And again, they're talented, and but on the day we were there, and kind of got into conference and got right before conference, had some games that were a little bit different caliber, and scored a bunch of goals and started to gain some confidence. And then went into conference and started off on a decent foot and did okay to start, and we're in a place we felt good about things. And then we tied a DePaul team that's very talented, and thought we deserved maybe a little more, and did enough from creating scoring opportunities. That was a challenge for us all year, is creating chances but not being not executing and producing on that end. So going to Ohio Wesleyan, and they're a very unique situation as well, with their wins and losses throughout the year, and played phenomenal. It was a great advert for college soccer, and first 15 minutes, oh my gosh, I was like, we're in trouble, and kind of weathered that and ended up tying 0-0. And I don't know, I'm trying not to be too biased, but I think it could have gone either way. I think it was a great game, and our guys competed at a high level. And I think after that, our guys were like, okay, we're gonna not roll, but we're in a good spot. And turned around and had Wabash, and after that, just kind of, I don't want to say wheels fall off, but stopped competing at a high level. And so that kind of, we fizzled out, and again, we go back. We had Kenyon there, and it was great game. It was 3-1, 1-1 at one point, and again, that's a special team and a special program, and
Yeah.
that's what I saw we were capable of, and I think the guys saw that too. But it was just too inconsistent for us, and ended us being on the outside looking in at fifth instead of fourth, and then having a opportunity to play some of those teams again. So it was okay. I think we learned a ton about ourselves, and I think a lot of it was rooted in some kind of the slow moving collision and crash where end of the season I was like, that's why we struggled. And it was kind of rooted in some leadership challenges, and not that we didn't have good leaders, but I don't think they had experiences prior to this. I think COVID created this unique void that in retrospect, I knew that was going to happen, but in the moment didn't see it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one major incident. It was just kind of small things here and there that culturally chipped away, and we lacked a little bit of competitive and leadership maturity. And the guys have already made some changes in this offseason, which have been really positive. But so it left us, I think, wanting more and very hungry, and did a lot of good things, but kind of fell short of some of our goals, and that's on us. And we learn from that and move forward.
I always try to look at the schedule from a momentum perspective, right? Like sort of you're going one of two ways, right? Well, there's three ways to go. You're either, right, you're going straight up, you're going straight down, or you're sort of like doing this start, stop, and it looks like it kind of looks that way. Like you just couldn't get that gut right. Like you needed like you needed that, even if you got a tie out of John Carroll, maybe you get one of the wins at Penn State Barron or Fredonia.
Sure.
Maybe that gives you enough momentum at the start. I don't know if that's accurate.
No, I think it is. I think you gain a sense of kind of self-confidence, and not like, oh my gosh, we're already there, but just kind of you start getting a roll, and the expectation becomes we win games, and I think the years where we've been a touch more positive on the win-loss side of things has been like we just find a way, and this year we had a little trouble finding a way in some of those tight games, and and that's tough, and as you know, the margin for error in soccer is very slim, and you just I watched our men's basketball this weekend, like, wow, what great games, but you're scoring 80 points a game. You're going to get opportunities. For us, in the nature of soccer, you need to be efficient and clinical, and take your chances.
Yeah, totally. Right, you might only get one chance, and you better bury it. Otherwise, right, you're going to 0-0. Right, that could conceivably be the case. But on the positive side, did anything surprise you about your team? Did you learn anything about this group?
Yeah,
of guys?
I think on the starting with that kind of what we learned about ourselves from a leadership standpoint, that's really positive, which sounds kind of weird to say. Like, some of that is me being an optimist and putting the positive spin on things, but needed to experience some of that to know we've got to keep pressing into this. As much as I want it just to be a well-oiled machine, there's times where you got to keep putting the oil in and keep going and keep driving through that. So I think that's a plus. I think a lot of our players, we're in a kind of middle-heavy group right now because of graduation and fifth years and things like that. And so it was good for some of those first years and current sophomores, so rising sophomores and juniors in the next year, to experience some competitive games and have a lot of success. So I think that's a really bright spot for us as well. And then learn just, as we had to makeshift some different things, kind of in retrospect, to put some players in different positions that might have helped them be more successful individually, but also our program too. So, And I think, this is going to sound silly, like learning it's fun, like that sounds dumb, but like at the end of the day, we're playing a game, and we get to coach young men about leadership and about soccer. And that's the best part of it. It's hard to get caught up in the wins and losses, but at the end of the day, we're doing a lot of positive things as a group, and have a pretty tight-knit community and culture that we reflect on and we're thankful for.
So just based on what you said, do you think you got momentum going into next year because you had this middle group of players, sophomores?
I do, yeah. I think
freshmen?
Yes, I do. I think they're real thirsty and hungry, like I said, to kind of take that next step. As we've been in this kind of weird place as a program, but I'm excited for them. Some of the things they've done this offseason have been pretty powerful. I think it's been nice to watch them be empowered and not have our coaching staff, really accessible with that. And they've taken the reins, and it's been neat to hear the feedback, and it's been positive, I think, for them to grow and for the young guys to take some leadership opportunity and to have a sense of I won't say a sense of belonging, but a sense of I feel valued. I feel like I'm doing something and helping drive things forward. And I think everybody's kind of rowing the boat, if that makes sense. That analogy. It's we're in the boat, but everybody's got to pick up the oar and do something with it. So, I'd like to think so, and it's exciting and a long way to go until the fall. But I think as of March 1st tomorrow, I'd like we're in a positive spot, I think.
Yeah. So dealing with these challenges and whatnot, this is the boss's question, so it's recorded, so just be mindful.
Sure.
How would you assess your coaching and your coaching staff's job this fall?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I think one of the things I got wrapped up in that I try not to is the wins and losses. I think I felt like I was more on the result and not on kind of winning that moment. It got so we have to win this game, and it was less of let's focus on we do X, Y, and Z right, then hopefully that'll take care of itself. And I think that was more subconsciously. I don't think it was super overt, but I think that's one thing as I reflect would have been important. I think an area I've grown is I've gotten a bit more candor, if that makes sense. I'm a pretty, I don't know, sweet, if that makes sense, as opposed to the hammer and whatnot. And so I've grown to understand, and the guys tell me all the time, Coach, we know you love us, so tell us to us how it is. So trying to be a bit more candor and upfront about different situations and confronting what we don't want in our culture or what we don't want in training or off the training field and things like that. So I think that's one area that's been positive. And then within our coaching staff, I think we have a new assistant this was his first fall. Our old assistant was fantastic, and his name's Devin Spielvogel. Got married, is now they're expecting, so excited for him. But there was a little bit of transition period for us as we're figuring out who does what and how do we navigate and utilize our strengths to the best of our abilities to help the program out, if that makes sense.
Your assistant is a Wittenberg grad?
He is, yeah, Mike Lambeck, yep. Yep. Yeah, keeping the NCAC. So, so no, great guy, has a lot of experience. Coaching-wise, has had some unique stuff as a head coach, as a young head coach, and then as a goalkeeper coach has been fantastic. So, we're still, I think after the season and this off season, we've hit a good sweet spot of how to respond to each other and utilize each other effectively.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't, but it was a learning process, if that makes sense.
Can I ask? This is you don't have to answer that. Is he a full-time assistant? Do you have a full-time assistant?
Yeah, I would say it's as full-time as we can get. I think when I first started as an assistant, it was part-time pay, but full-time work. Does that make sense? It felt to do what we needed to do, it had to be as hands-on as possible. Now I think we're at a fortunate place as an institution. It's full-time, and that salary is all, you could talk to, he needs to make more. All of our assistants, whether it's at Wooster or School X, Y, and Z, need to make more money. It's full-time, and so we, given where we're at, try to be respectful of his time and things like that. But it's
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious, right?
Sure. Does that make sense? I think.
Because when I started, it was you got a stipend for the season, and then it was done, right? That was sort of the.
And when I was first playing, the head coach of another team was our assistant, and it was actually a dear friend, good mentor, Michael Caravana, who's former lacrosse coach at Denison. He's phenomenal, and I'm like, oh, it's great to have on our sideline. But now that's changed completely, where your secondary duty is not an assistant with another program. It's maybe teaching or something else, and then now most I think institutions are trying to hire and provide support and from a coaching, but recruiting and everything. It's nice to have.
That's probably the big benefit, right? Is just from the recruiting standpoint.
Absolutely, some legs, with children. I get out, but it's nice to take a weekend just to be a dad and not worry about that.
Yeah, totally agree. So, do you think the NCAC turned out the way played out the way you expected it to, just based on the competition? Was there anything that sort of surprised you
I
or
don't know
didn't
about
surprise you?
surprises. I think I will say one surprise. It's been a long time since we haven't gone to the last day and it was decided. There's
Mm-hmm.
like the previous 2 years we were, I think, in what was your 20 in 21. I think there was three teams vying for the fourth spot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was us and then Oberlin and Wabash and a variety of things needed to happen for each team to get in. And then the year before. I think similar scenario. And the year pre-COVID, we went in, we finished our game, we were in fourth, and
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know if I consider it upset, but Denison went to Wesleyan and won, and so they bumped us from fourth and they got in. And so
Yeah.
I think that was a little bit of a surprise that it didn't. It's kind of fun to go to the last day, last game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a wood chipper. It's a battle. I really like. Between Kenyon, Ohio Wesleyan, and what's happening, and Brandon's doing a great job at Denison, and the level of play just throughout the conference is really high, and so it's the any given Sunday, any given
Yeah.
midweek or Saturday, it's
Yeah.
you need to show up and compete.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would
I
say there's anything that was overly surprising. I think
mm,
that a lot of jostling in that 3 through 6 and 7 is going to be a
yeah.
consistent theme probably.
I have to say, just by and large, for the most part, I'm impressed by the way all the teams play in the NCAC that I've got a chance to watch. Right, obviously, I'll say Kenyon and Ohio Wesleyan sort of are the standard bearers
Hmm.
right now. To where they're at and their national prominence, but obviously Denison getting better each year under Brandon, I think is huge. I like the way you guys play and attack the ball. Um, I was actually I watched Wabash on one of the off seasons. I thought they were or one of the non-conference
Sure.
games, and I thought that they looked good. I was really surprised by them, and so anyhow,
Yeah, no, it's high level. You have good coaches that are
yeah,
committed to getting better, and I think that makes
yeah,
it hard. Everybody wants to win, and they're competitive. A
yeah,
lot of them played in college and have had some experience at high levels, and so it's putting the work in. They're going to be
yeah.
competitive.
Yeah, and what DePaul has a new coach, right?
Yep.
The former coach at Loris. I think
Yep,
I'm
yep.
supposed
Steve
to
McCarthy,
reach.
an Ohio
Yeah,
guy, Capital guy. When I was at Denison, he was an assistant with me as well. A great guy. He knows what he's doing. It's gonna,
yeah,
increase the level. So here we
yeah,
go,
yeah,
which is great,
yeah,
which is fun. And
yeah.
that's in the moment, I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, but
You got
in retrospect,
it.
you want to be playing against high level competition. That's what makes it
Yeah,
fun, and it doesn't make it challenging and leave some bitterness when things don't go your way. Absolutely, but it's I'd rather have that than something else, if that makes sense.
you don't want. I hate to say it, like I was. You don't want to play soft teams, right? You want every team you play to challenge you. Otherwise, you're never really going to get anywhere.
Sure.
Your wins and losses may look good, but you're never going to amount
Hmm.
to much of a team outside of that just because everybody's going to be like, who you playing, right?
Yeah.
But you go up against Kenyon, you tie Ohio Wesleyan. That's a big friggin' deal, like so. Hey, so I do have to ask you. You had five ties. I
Hmm.
sort of alluded to Barron, Fredonia, DePaul, Ohio Wesleyan, and Oberlin.
Hmm.
Do you like not having OTs for those games, or would you have preferred to let's bash it out?
It's that's a tough one, right? Like because
Mm-hmm.
we were on the outside looking in, could we have gotten something out of one or two of those games that give us a couple extra points? Maybe.
Yeah.
But then of course you have the run the risk of it going the other way.
Yeah.
I don't know the competitor, and when this was first happening, I think the first time I was on, the competitor in me wants a winner, right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, I like that, I value that,
Mm-hmm.
but also at the same time, the soccer mind in me and the understanding of the game and the load and things like that, like a lot of it makes sense, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's unique. I will say I don't think we have enough. I don't think 1 year sample size is enough to sit here and say it's working or not working. If that
No.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
almost. No. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I was
I
gonna.
didn't. Anything else.
Yeah, I almost think it's got to level out, like there's got to be, because it's year one, you don't know if it's normal, like
Mhm.
the number of ties. Is it normal? Is it just so happens that we notice it? And it's almost got to sort of normalize itself out over
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
Is
It's
this a
I
new
ran
way that we're gonna have to get
yeah
used to it? So
I ran into in one of our locker rooms this past weekend. Some of the refs for men's basketball were here for the NCAC tournament, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're like, "Oh, we're great. Every game's been perfect. We got one winner, one loser." And I had a soccer shirt on. And he goes, "Ah, your sport. I don't know about that." So it's different, right? Like, and I think how does that? I was fortunate enough to be on the regional ranking, the RAC this year, first time ever doing it. It was a really cool process. And this year, what does a tie do? How do you factor that in?
yeah,
And you got teams with, like us on the more heavy side 5. There were teams with like more like 8+. And how
hmm
does how do you factor that in? Who are you
yeah,
tying? It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays itself out.
yeah. I've been saying right now you have to determine the worth of a tie.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not splitting of points. It's now splitting of points, and some have more value. Those
Mhm.
points have a little bit more value than others, right?
Yeah.
So, um, all right, I do have to ask you: are you going to be enjoying next year when you have the extra days for spring? Is that
Yes,
something that you welcome?
yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of positive to that. I think it's a great move for our student athletes and to have
Mm-hmm.
that experience. And I think for me, as I look at it, it's not. Yes, I want to do more soccer, and I think the guys want to do more soccer. But for me, it's more the touch points. There's days or weeks I don't see some of the guys, and I try to be intentional about having them come in or catching them in our Scott Center or whatever. But there's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes where it just doesn't happen. Where I like,
Yeah.
okay, now we have more days to have touch points, how things going academically, what's going on, things like that. So I think that'll be a really positive thing. And then I think the other part of that is just the ability to give them more opportunity to grow as a competitor and as a player, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what we want. I think that's what they want. Is it a step towards can we get another game? I don't know. Of course they like more practices, but they want to play, they want to compete. So
Yeah.
is that a move in that direction? And so I think that'll be a good thing. And I think for us, we'll use ours in the spring, but I know for other sports, I think it's great. Like baseball and softball, they're like, oh my gosh, we can't stand each other. Can we have more time in the fall and then have
Yeah.
more, a similar preseason to what they have now? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that'll be a good move, and I'm excited to see where it goes and what opportunities we can, you know, create with that.
You're, you're like the 10th coach I've spoken to who's talked about like the touch points with athletes.
Mhm.
Is it that big of a deal? Do
I
you
think it
lose?
is.
I don't
I
want to
think,
say you lose control, but do you lose?
yeah,
You,
and I don't
you know
think
what I
we
mean?
have either. And I think again, I do like, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the downtime or wait time from coaching staff for the leaders to emerge and for them to have some responsibility and feel empowered.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it goes out of control. But I think it's just, I don't know, the way I'm wired in our program, and it's very relational. And so to kind of not
Yeah.
have those opportunities to have intentional connections is hard. And I even think for our student athletes in general, I always think they're at such an advantage because they have a coaching staff and have a group of anywhere from 20 to 30 people they can be intimate with and be connected with, and to be able to provide that space to do that all the time is going to be, I think,
Yeah.
really positive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think about non-student athletes, and if something goes wrong, who are they? I mean, obviously they have friends and relationships, but who can they connect to? Who's their go-to person? And so I think
Yeah.
for us as coaches, we have that opportunity to create that type of culture and environment to do those things.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. I never thought about that. Maybe it's because it's the way I operate. Like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna set me and forget me, right? Like,
Sure.
and the importance of staying connected to these young guys is, yeah, I could see the value of that, right? And not only you connecting to them, but them connecting to you,
Right.
right? It ends. It goes both ways.
And connecting with each other too. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
we want them to have great relationships within the team and great relationships outside the team. But again, this gives them more, I don't know, value to each other and more of an opportunity to bond and
Yeah.
connect and be a part of something bigger and realize
Yeah.
that they are
Yeah.
needed and valued to help the program move forward.
Yeah. That's interesting. See, now look what you've done to me. Now I'm going to be thinking about this. Maybe I should
Yeah.
start
Well,
asking about that. Hey, all right. So you went. We alluded to you went 5, 7, and 5.
yeah.
you finished sixth in the conference, and you sort of have this like, yeah, it wasn't a great season, it wasn't a bad. There was you thought you were close. Like, was there a point in this season where you thought, there? I don't want to say there's issues. There's always issues, but I don't know. Like you're not getting that feeling like we can.
The start of the season we did. We just couldn't get to grips. Like we had a real slow start. Played at a decent level, but had trouble getting results, and so I think that we struggled with that a little bit, gaining some confidence and traction. And then we had kind of a middle part right before the conference season where we went on a little bit of a run and scored a bunch of goals and had some shutouts and went to conference and started off, top of the table, got 3 points, which was great, and then had a little bit of a stretch where we had some, more challenging games, and we just never really got rolling. I mean, we played Witt and were fortunate enough to win. To be honest, we were down 2-0 on 2 set pieces, credit to them, and came back and won 3-2. But I felt like, why are we in this situation? And even Kenyon, I thought we played there, and I was like, okay, we turned a corner. Like, I mean, after the game, we lost, but like felt good. Like I felt like gave them fits, and Coach Chris had some great things to say afterwards, and that means a lot coming from him. I mean, they're the real deal, and so. Yeah. Did that and go to Wesleyan in time. Like, okay, we're going to turn the corner, and we went to Wabash, and that's a tough place to play no matter what. Like road trip, leaving on Friday, and Chris does a great job there. They're organized, they're disciplined, they're pragmatic, and got some players. And I remember thinking that morning, some of our guys were saying some things, and I was like, we're in trouble. Just the focus was not on soccer, on things that we couldn't control, and I'm like, why does that matter? And so we struggle with that, and I think that was a bit of maturity from a competitive standpoint. Struggle in that game, and then going to Oberlin at home, and we win. You get to play against Denison in a playing game for both teams. No matter what, if you win, it's a playing game. Whoever wins goes fourth, loser goes fifth, and didn't play particularly well against Oberlin. It took us a while to kind of kick into gear, and it was like, guys, this is a playoff game. This is what you want. Meaningful games the last week of the season, and just didn't have it consistently. On our day we were pretty good, but then there were days where we didn't perform or compete at a high enough level, and nobody blamed but ourselves.
Yeah. That's interesting. You can tell, like especially on the away games, you could sort of get a sense well before the game, like is the mentality right? Is the that's interesting. And Oberlin, I look at that and I'm like, I wouldn't have chalked that up as a tie for you guys under any circumstance.
Yeah. No, but then in credit, like I said, credit them. We didn't do what we needed to do, and had chances and didn't finish, and they finished a couple of theirs, and Blake does a great job there. So, it's a bummer at the end of the day. I think that was kind of the finality for our season, as opposed to, like I said, having a playing game with Denison, which would have been exciting for both teams. But
yeah. That's why you play the game, man.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if it were that easy, you wouldn't have to play. But, hey, how do you approach the spring? Like, what do you do from a training perspective, or how do you try to align? I always think good teams use the spring really efficiently to sort of set them up for the fall. Could you talk a little bit about your spring practice?
Sure, it's a great question. It's funny you said. I was literally talking to our assistant yesterday, Mike, and we were like, okay, what are our goals from we're meeting with our captains tomorrow. We have a weekly meeting to go over the agenda is, okay, what's the spring objective? We go on spring break a week from Friday. So, what do we want to accomplish culturally, tactically, technically, competitively, just, open session. What do we want to get out of this? And so, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think some coaches like to do a lot more teaching in the spring, and it's a chance because there's a little less lather, rinse, repeat. It's not game, recovery, day before a game, play again. It's more of, okay, deep breath. We got 15 opportunities. Let's make the most of it. And how do we educate our players? So preliminarily, we talked, okay, what's one tactical thing in attack we want to work on? And so I think we're going to try to tease that out, and that'll be our focus on attack, and that'll incorporate, movement off the ball, with the ball, things like that. And then what's one thing defensively we want to get out of this, from a holistic standpoint, but then obviously from an individual standpoint. So I think that's the approach we're going to take from that. And then one of the things we'd love to do is compete, and so have a little bit of how do we induce that into every training session? Not that doesn't happen in the fall, but be able to have a little bit of, okay, we're going to organize into teams. Every Friday we're going to have the Black and Gold Cup or something like that, or the Scots Cup. And so some of that with a little bit less pressure on preparing for, we got to next game, we got to do this and that. And it's unique too, because we have 3 players abroad, and I would say they're impactful players. And so now it's going to give some younger guys an opportunity to step in training, but then in our spring competition to kind of see how they've grown from, the end of the fall until now. So, so I'm hopeful that'll be a good recipe. We'll kind of see as, things shake down as we get a little bit closer, but that's our goal, is to educate on those 2 sides of things and then make sure it's competitive and fun.
Yeah, I think the competition is big, right? Competing and just getting their blood flowing and going after
every
it.
day. And they love it. And that's, I don't know, I'd love to do that. Like, one of the best things about soccer, I feel like you can just, roll the ball out and play. Like, we're not going to do that, but there's going to be opportunity to just go play, and I think that's fun. Yeah.
It's you get this sense of freedom, like, this is great, and like you could, hey, last question for you, and I'll let you get on with your afternoon. What does your incoming class look like? Is it done? Do you have everybody?
Good question. It is not done. As we talked a little bit ago, it's a challenge. It's a big decision for 17, 18-year-olds, aside from social choices they make, probably the biggest decision that they're going to make right now. And so a lot of moving parts, and we have some commits that we think make us better. And I think we're at a place as a program where we're going head to head with other programs that are good and sometimes on paper better than us, and that's a healthy thing. And so our ability to win some of those battles, if that makes sense, is going to help us out. And so I think that the caliber of student athlete we're recruiting from when I started to now is much different. And I think that's a plus, but that makes it harder because there's other good programs looking at the players as well. So, so we're not quite done, and we're getting there and getting close, like everybody else, and that's okay.
But
I'm excited.
That wasn't
the individuals we've got committed right now. They make us better. They make us better as a team, but they're the right fit for our program. And keep going back to that. We're going to attract the right people, and the right people that we get, or the people we get, are the people that should be here, and are the right people. It's chaos.
Right, so not my last.
Chaos.
I believe I'm sitting here like this is nuts. This is crazy. I always say there's got to be a better way, and I'm like, no, there is no better way. It's the only way. There's no way to make.
We try to be very relational in our recruiting, and so I try not to take it personally when somebody goes elsewhere, but like it's hard not to, even though why wouldn't you want to come to Wooster? It's the greatest place ever, but there's a lot of other great schools out there too. There's a lot of options and things like that, and so it's tough. It's a unique part of the job that's fun, but also gut wrenching and nails on chalkboards and all sorts of emotions.
So I have to. I've never asked this before, but how many times have you wanted to basically unload on someone who's going somewhere else and telling them what a big mistake they made for not choosing you, right?
I think I know best, right? I don't, but like you get to know the individual and know their personality, and we know the personality of our program. Like, this is a good fit. And when they don't, sometimes it's pretty frustrating. But we've lost individuals, and I'm like, it makes sense. It's probably not the right fit. We want them as we think they'd help us out, but like the other institution might be a better fit for a variety of reasons. Whether that's academic, athletic, even socially and culturally. And so, that's funny you say that. Like, you just.
Like, what? Let me shake you. What are you doing? You're throwing away the rest of your life.
Right.
Anyhow. Coach, thank you very much for this. Really do appreciate you taking the time. Love the hat, the old school hat, and love the shirt. Sure. Love it. I'll be wearing it proudly.
Once every 3 days.
I'm going to get so in trouble. I don't want to get too much in trouble, but really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we appreciate what you do, again, as coaches, being an advocate for us, and just, like I said earlier, just being excited about soccer and promoting it and wanting to have conversations. And it's good for us to, when we tune in, to hear these things and learn from each other too. So it's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's become this thing. So lots going on. So hopefully it'll just keep getting better. So all right. So we'll be in touch in the summer. All right.
Sounds
so
good.
that you can give your preview.
Sounds great.
Season preview. All right.
Great. All right. Look forward to it. Have a good spring with your family, and take care. Okay.
You too. Yep.
All right. Thanks. See you.
Thanks. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps him happy.